Hey gang, what's up? Welcome back here to another edition of Intuitive Angling, and thank you very much for checking out today's video. We're going to be talking about the three main things that ruin anglers' success, things that they do to undermine their own success. Now, there's a lot of things that this can fall under, but there's three main ones, in my opinion, that you need to avoid, and by doing so, you'll definitely have a lot more success in the long run. Okay, first one is not knowing when to leave an area or staying in an area too long, or basically leaving an area too quick or staying too long in one area. And this is one of the most difficult ones out there. This is one of those that you don't really know until you make a move one way or the other, because ultimately that's going to determine it. But here's some things that I can sort of give you some tips and advice. One of the first things that a good angler develops is the ability to read water's potential. And what we're talking about this is certain ways that you fish and certain areas have more potential for you to catch fish at certain times of the day. Now, let's say, for example, you're fishing, you've got a pattern where you're fishing isolated stumps on a point. And anytime you come up to a point and there's a stump on it, you can catch a fish off of it. Now, on a situation like this, it's going to be very hard to duplicate this and stay with that pattern for it to sustain itself, simply because the cover is so isolated and there may not be enough of that cover. But say, for example, if you're fishing an area, let's say a lake that's got a lot of boat docks, and you pull into this one creek and there's 50 boat docks in front of you on one side of the creek, and there's 50 boat docks on the other side of the creek. There's a tremendous amount of cover there, so that area is going to have more potential. So ultimately, one of the things that you can make this determination is how much cover does an area have that can sustain a larger population of fish, and are those fish going to bite under different weather conditions? So the first thing you can do is, say for example, if you're fishing the area that I'm talking about, you go into a creek and there's 25 secondary points on this creek, and maybe 20 of them have got a stump on a point. Now, if you go into that area and you fish 10 points without catching one on those stumps, more than likely you need to leave that area. You need to get out of there, even if it hadn't taken you very long. But say for example, you're on the area that's got a lot of docks on it, and there's 100 docks for you to fish. Instead of fishing 20 docks without a bite, you may have to keep staying on those docks, because that is the primary cover there and it offers a lot of cover. But just change your techniques up, change your lure, change your presentations up, and that's usually when you'll hit on there. So the answer to that, the first reason, guys, is the more cover that you have in an area, the longer to stay there, and the less cover you have in an area, that's a sign that you need to get out of there and try something else. Okay, number two, the things that bass anglers do to ruin their success is they fish too fast. Guys, you will never do well fishing too fast, ever. I mean, I call it slopping through an area. And if you pull into an area and you start slopping through that area, and you got the trolling motor on 7 or 8, and you're making lots of casts, very seldom are you going to catch one. And what happens a lot of times is the longer you go without catching a fish, you usually start speeding up a little bit, because you feel like you got to get through an area to get into the next spot, or there's no fish where you're at, and you tend to fish faster. You have to resist this at all costs. Anytime that you find yourself fishing fast, you need to be aware of that and make an adjustment. Now, here's one of the things you can do with that is, if you get the feeling, now we've all been there, I've been there, everyone has been there at all. If you feel that you're casting and you don't have a shot to catch a fish at every single cast, like every cast that you make, you ought to be expecting a strike. But if you feel like you're just casting and you don't have a very good shot of catching one every cast, that's normally when you need to slow down a little bit. And a lot of it has to do with how much cover you have, how difficult that cover is to fish at a certain pace. And it may not necessarily be as clear as the opposite about fishing fast or fishing slow. It's finding the right pace. So let's say, for example, if you're flipping and pitching flooded bushes, and say there's a big thick row of flooded bushes to flip and pitch, you can't slop through something like that. You got to take your time and work, through each bush. So you're going to be working at a snail's pace. But if you're, say, for example, you're on a rocky bank that goes for a long way, or a big riprap stretch, and the wind's blowing pretty good, and you're throwing a crankbait, then you can speed it up a little bit. You don't have to fish like a snail. You can sort of just, fish along at a good pace. But the main thing, guys, is just do not get going too fast. Don't ever get going too fast where you feel like you're not fishing efficiently for that technique that you're fishing. And a lot of this goes on with your trolling motor speed too. I think a lot of people run their trolling motors too fast. A lot of people run their trolling motors too slow. You have to find that happy medium where you're fishing at that pace that allows you to efficiently cover the water, yet still cover enough water to come upon some active fish. But ultimately, guys, one of the biggest things that ruins people's successes are just fishing too fast. Okay, and finally, the number third, and there's a lot more, but we're just talking about 3 today, is one of the things that really ruins people's success in the water is they don't experiment enough with colors. I am a firm believer that bass react significantly to colors. And there's a lot of different color variations out there. You got metallic finishes, you got clear finishes, you got flat finishes, you got natural tones, you got bright tones, it's just the color of the rainbow out there. And one of the things that is going to be frustrating to a lot of anglers out there is there's no rule that tells you what is going to work all the time. Now, you got some general guidelines. Say, for example, if you're fishing really clear water, your natural subdued colors are probably going to work better. And if you're fishing muddy water, like water visibility over 6 inches, your brighter colors, like your whites and your chartreuses, are probably going to work better. But those are extremes. There's always things in between. One of the things that you have to do with colors is you have to experiment, because there's no way to tell unless you experiment, because there's a lot of different factors that determine into that. It's the sunlight condition. It's how much light intensity you have or you don't have. It's the wind. It's the angle of the sun in the sky. It's how much shade is coming off a bank. It's the water clarity. It's the wind speed. There's a lot of variables that will determine why bass hit a certain color. But ultimately, just try something. If you're not getting bit and you feel like you're in a good area, change colors and give it a try for 10 or 15 minutes. And then if that's not working, just keep changing until you hit one that you feel, you got confidence in, or you're getting some bites in. So anyway, guys, that's the 3 things that's going to ruin a lot of fishermen's success, is not knowing when to leave, or not staying long enough, or staying too early, fishing too fast, and not changing up colors enough. So anyway, guys, hope that helps out. We'll talk to y'all later. See you.